Mercedes does not just sell cars. It sells 7 distinct levels of status, and most people only ever experience the first 2. From the entry badge that gets you noticed in a parking lot all the way to a machine so exclusive that owning money alone will not get you one. This list climbs from level 1 to the single most extreme Mercedes ever built. Some of these levels you can walk into a dealership and drive home today. One of them you cannot simply buy. Mercedes has to decide you deserve it first. Let's get into it. Level 7, the Gateway Badge. This is where almost every Mercedes story begins, the A-Class and the CLA. Priced to compete directly with entry luxury rivals, this level exists for one reason, to put the 3-pointed star on your driveway for the lowest possible price. Most buyers at this level finance or lease rather than pay outright, and monthly payments often land close to what someone might pay for a well-optioned mainstream sedan, which is exactly the bridge Mercedes wants this level to build. Under the hood sits a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine shared with several other vehicles in the lineup, which keeps costs down, but also means the driving experience is closer to a well-dressed economy car than a true luxury machine. Inside, you still get the MBX infotainment system, the same digital cockpit found in cars costing 3 times as much, which is exactly why this level sells so well. Mercedes lets you buy the brand experience before you can afford the full engineering experience. It is worth noting that even at this level, Mercedes does not cut corners on the things buyers see and touch every single day. The steering wheel, the climate controls, the door handles, all of it feels deliberately premium because first impressions sell cars, and Mercedes understands that better than almost any manufacturer on the planet. Plenty of owners at this level genuinely never feel like they are missing anything, simply because they never spend extended time inside a higher level Mercedes to notice the difference. An AMG line trim package adds aggressive styling, larger wheels, and sport seats, tricking plenty of buyers into thinking they have stepped into performance territory. They have not yet. Take a typical first-time luxury buyer in their late 20s, the kind of person who just got a promotion and wants something nicer than the compact sedan they have been driving for years. The A-Class or CLA gives them exactly what they are shopping for, a badge that signals arrival without a payment that signals overreach. Financing on this level often lands within striking distance of a well-equipped mainstream car, which is precisely the point. What buyers at this level rarely realize is how much engineering compromise went into hitting that price point. Sound-deadening material gets trimmed, certain interior surfaces swap from real metal to convincing plastic, and the suspension tuning leans toward a firmer, sportier feel, partly because genuine luxury isolation costs more than this segment can absorb. Insurance costs also factor into why this level appeals to first-time luxury buyers. Premiums on the A-Class and CLA tend to track closer to a mainstream compact than to anything wearing a true luxury badge, removing one more financial barrier that might otherwise keep someone out of the showroom entirely. This is the level most owners never leave. It is comfortable, badge-worthy, and genuinely good enough for daily life, but the moment you sit in level 6, you understand exactly why people upgrade. Level 6, the real Mercedes experience. The C-Class is where the brand actually starts feeling like Mercedes, not just looking like it. This is the best-selling Mercedes worldwide, and for good reason. The chassis tuning improves noticeably, the cabin materials step up from convincing plastic to genuine soft-touch surfaces, and the available inline-6 engine in the AMG C43 trim delivers a sound and a pull that the entry-level simply cannot fake. Mercedes dealers will openly tell you the C-Class is where the average customer's budget naturally lands once they have spent a few months actually shopping. The badge stops feeling like the entire purchase, and the driving experience starts mattering just as much. It is not unusual for a buyer to walk in planning on an A-Class and walk out signing for a C-Class instead, once a salesperson points out how small the actual payment difference turns out to be over a typical loan term. A C300 sedan starts well into the 40s, while a fully loaded C43 with all-wheel drive pushes past $60,000 depending on options. The gap between level 7 and level 6 is where Mercedes makes its real argument for the brand. This is the car that actually earns the badge on the hood. Maintenance costs start climbing here too though, since the AMG C43's twin-scroll, turbocharged inline-6 demands the kind of specialized servicing a basic 4-cylinder simply does not need. A trade-off most buyers accept happily, once they have heard what that engine sounds like at full throttle. The C-Class also marks the point where Mercedes starts taking handling seriously rather than just comfort. Steering feel sharpens, body roll through corners tightens up noticeably, and the optional adaptive suspension lets a driver toggle between a relaxed commuting setup and a genuinely engaging backroad setup at the press of a button, a flexibility the entry level simply does not offer. Owners at this level talk about ride quality differently. The The suspension absorbs road imperfections instead of transmitting them, and road noise drops to a level that makes long highway stretches feel shorter than they actually are. It is also the level where resale value starts behaving more predictably, since the C-Class has decades of reputation behind it rather than the relatively young A-Class lineage. Consider the difference between two coworkers, one driving an A-Class and one driving a C300, parking next to each other at the same office every morning. From across the lot, they look similar enough. Same grille, same badge, same general silhouette, but step inside and the difference becomes obvious within seconds. The C-Class feels solid in a way the entry level simply does not. Doors close with a heavier, more reassuring thud, and the dashboard materials respond differently to touch. Mercedes also uses the C-Class as a proving ground for technology that eventually trickles both up and down the lineup. Certain driver assistance refinements get tested here before becoming standard everywhere else. That dual role, accessible enough to sell in huge volume while serious enough to carry real engineering weight, is exactly why this level anchors the entire brand. But space is still tight in the back seat, and that limitation is exactly what the next level was built to solve. Level 5, the business class, sedan. Step up to the E-Class and the entire purpose of the car shifts. This is no longer about getting noticed. It is about being comfortable for hours at a time, whether you are driving yourself or being driven. Mercedes positions the E-Class as the natural step for buyers who started their journey at level 2 and now have a family, a longer commute, or simply enough income to stop compromising on comfort for the sake of a sportier feel. Rear legroom expands significantly compared to the C-Class, turning the back seat into a genuinely usable space for adults on long trips. Mercedes designs this generation specifically with chauffeured executives in mind, which is why hybrid and plug-in variants sit comfortably in this lineup. Quiet operation matters more here than outright performance. Pricing typically starts around $60,000 and climbs past $80,000 with the AMG E53 trim, which adds a turbocharged inline 6 paired with a mild hybrid system for an extra punch of power when you need it. The E-Class also wears Mercedes safety technology first, often debuting features here before they trickle down to cheaper models. Adaptive cruise control, lane centering, and parking assistance systems all feel more refined at this level than anywhere below it. There is also a noticeable shift in how the air suspension behaves at this level, soaking up expansion joints and potholes with a composure that genuinely surprises first-time passengers, the kind of ride quality that makes people in the back seat ask what model they are riding in. Picture a family that splits its driving between a daily school run and the occasional 6-hour road trip to visit relatives. At level 6, that long drive leaves everyone a little stiff and a little tired of road noise by the time they arrive. At level 5, the same trip feels almost like flying business class on wheels. The cabin stays quiet enough for conversation at highway speed, and the rear seats genuinely accommodate adults for hours without complaint. Even the trunk space grows meaningfully at this level, easily swallowing luggage for a full family vacation without anyone having to play a game of automotive Tetris before leaving the driveway. This is also where Mercedes starts treating the driver as optional rather than mandatory. Plenty of E-Class buyers in markets with professional chauffeur culture configure the car almost entirely around the rear seat experience, ordering rear seat climate controls, a reclining function, and even a tablet-style control panel mounted in the rear door, features that would feel out of place on a C-Class but feel completely natural here. Available as a wagon in some markets, a sedan, a coupe, and a cabriolet, the E-Class is arguably the most versatile level on this entire list. But versatility is not the same as dominance, and dominance is exactly what Level 4 delivers. Level 4, the flagship statement. The S-Class is not just another Mercedes, it is the car every other luxury manufacturer studies before designing their own flagship. Engineers from rival brands have openly admitted to buying S-Class models specifically to disassemble them, studying everything from door seal design to seat foam density, simply because matching the benchmark requires understanding exactly how it was built in the first place. Historically, this is where Mercedes introduces technology first. Anti-lock brakes, airbags, and modern safety architecture all debuted in the S-Class decades before becoming industry standard. That tradition continues today with cutting-edge driver assistance and cabin technology that eventually filters down to every cheaper level on this list. Even the door closing mechanism on certain S-Class trims uses a powered system that gently pulls the door the final few inches shut, removing any chance of an awkward, effortful slam, the kind of small touch that owners rarely mention but would immediately miss if it disappeared. Even the climate system at this level can read a sudden temperature shift and adjust before the cabin actually feels it, using outside sensors and predictive software rather than waiting for passengers to reach for a button, the kind of invisible engineering that defines the entire S-Class experience. Starting north of $115,000, the S-Class isn't competing on price, it is competing on presence. The rear seat alone can be optioned with reclining executive seating, individual climate zones, and a level of sound isolation that makes the outside world genuinely disappear. Engineers at Mercedes reportedly spend years tuning the sound the door makes when it closes, a detail most buyers never consciously notice, but absolutely feel on some level every single time they get in or out of the car. That obsession with details nobody asks about out loud is exactly what separates a flagship from everything below it. A Mercedes Maybach badge becomes available at the top of this trim level too, extending the wheelbase even further and adding details like a champagne cooler and rear curtain controls operated from the back seat, not the front. Think about what it actually means for a single model line to introduce the safety equipment that eventually saves lives across every other vehicle on the road. Not just other Mercedes models, but competitors who reverse engineer the same ideas years later. That is the S-Class's real legacy. It is less a product line and more a research laboratory that happens to also be for sale. Step inside and the cabin feels less like a car interior and more like a private lounge. Ambient lighting shifts through dozens of color options. The climate system can scent the cabin with one of several signature fragrances, something that would have sounded like science fiction on a luxury car just 2 decades ago. This is the car that diplomats, executives, and heads of state choose precisely because it says everything without saying anything at all. But raw presence is one form of dominance. The next level dominates a completely different way, through speed. Level 3. The Performance Division. AMG is not simply a trim package, it is practically a separate company operating inside Mercedes, and the difference shows the moment you put your foot down. AMG actually began life as an independent tuning company decades before Mercedes brought it fully in-house, and that independent racing heritage still shapes the culture inside the division. Today, engineers there speak openly about racetrack development sessions that have nothing to do with what the rest of Mercedes is working on that same week. AMG follows a tradition known as one man, one engine, where a single technician hand assembles each engine from start to finish and signs a plaque attached to the finished block. That level of craftsmanship is almost unheard of in modern mass production. Quality control at this stage goes far beyond a simple visual check, too. Each completed engine runs on a dedicated test bench before it ever gets installed, with the assigned technician personally signing off on the results before the unit leaves the building. Models like the AMG GT and the C63 with its electrified 4-cylinder hybrid setup deliver acceleration figures that compete directly with dedicated sports car manufacturers, not just other luxury sedans. Pricing ranges widely here from around $80,000 for entry AMG models up past $160,000 for the most track-focused variants. Beyond the engine itself, AMG models receive their own dedicated suspension tuning, brake packages, and aerodynamic elements, none of it simply borrowed from the standard car and badged differently. Even the exhaust note gets engineered separately, tuned to produce a specific sound signature that AMG enthusiasts can often identify by ear alone, long before the car comes into view. AMG also runs its own dedicated driver training program, inviting customers to track days where actual AMG engineers, coach owners through the car's full capability, a level of manufacturer involvement that turns a simple purchase into an ongoing relationship most other performance brands never bother building. The SL63, reborn as a proper roadster under the AMG banner, blends open top luxury with genuine track capability, a combination very few manufacturers manage to pull off convincingly. The one-man, one-engine tradition deserves a closer look, because it genuinely sets AMG apart from nearly every other performance brand on the planet. Each technician completes a certification program lasting years before they are trusted to assemble a customer engine alone, and the signed plaque attached to the finished unit means an owner can, in theory, look up exactly whose hands built the heart of their car. Mass production luxury brands simply do not offer that. Compare the daily experience of a C43 owner to a C63 owner who upgraded specifically for the hybrid powertrain. The C43 already feels genuinely quick, more than enough for most drivers on a public road, but the C63 adds an electric motor working alongside the turbocharged 4-cylinder, delivering a shove of torque the moment you press the pedal that the C43 simply cannot match, the kind of acceleration that used to require a much larger, much thirstier engine to achieve. This level exists for people who already own a comfortable Mercedes and decided comfort alone was not enough anymore. They wanted comfort that could also embarrass a sports car at a stoplight. If you are starting to realize just how deep this rabbit hole goes, smash that like button right now, and if you have not subscribed yet, this is exactly the moment to do it, because the final 2 levels are where things stop being a car purchase and start being something else entirely. Level 2, the Ultra Luxury. Sub-brand Maybach used to be a separate manufacturer entirely, building cars exclusively for royalty and heads of state. Mercedes revived the name as its own ultra-luxury tier, and the result sits above even the standard S-Class. The history matters here. Original Maybach automobiles from the early 20th century were genuinely hand-built one at a time for clients who could specify nearly anything, and reviving that name decades later was a deliberate signal that this tier was meant to operate by entirely different rules than the rest of the lineup. A Mercedes Maybach starts well past $185,000, and the differences from a standard S-Class go far beyond badging. The wheelbase stretches further. The rear doors close with a soft assisted motion borrowed from S-Class luxury but refined even more. And interior trim options include details like Napa leather quilting patterns and wood veneers not offered anywhere else in the Mercedes lineup. Mercedes also limits certain exterior colors and interior combinations exclusively to Maybach buyers, meaning the visual language of the car itself signals exclusivity before anyone even gets close enough to spot the badge. Two-tone paint jobs, a Maybach signature since the original pre-war era of the brand, remain a defining visual cue today, exactly as they were nearly a century ago. Special edition Maybach models occasionally appear with production runs numbering in the dozens worldwide. Designed in collaboration with fashion houses or artists, turning an already exclusive car into something closer to a wearable piece of jewelry than ordinary transportation. Production numbers stay deliberately low compared to the standard S-Class, which keeps exclusivity intact. Where an S-Class owner might see another S-Class on every highway commute, a Maybach owner rarely sees a twin. There is a particular moment Maybach owners describe, pulling up to a hotel or a private event and watching the valet's reaction shift the second they recognize the badge. An S-Class earns a respectful nod. A Maybach earns a noticeably different level of attention, partly because the car is rarer, and partly because everyone working that valet stand knows exactly what it signals about the person stepping out of it. Mercedes also extends the Maybach treatment beyond the S-Class these days, applying the same ultra-luxury formula to certain SUV models, giving buyers who want the exclusivity but prefer a higher seating position a way into the same tier. The formula stays consistent regardless of body style: longer wheelbase where possible, unique exterior badging, and two-tone paint options, and an interior built almost entirely around rear seat comfort rather than driver engagement. This level is built almost entirely around the rear seat experience. Business executives and dignitaries are driven, not driving, and every design decision reflects that priority, from the reclining seats to the individually controlled climate zones to the available rear seat entertainment screens that rival a private jet cabin. It is genuinely possible to spend an entire long-haul flight's worth of hours in the back of one of these cars and arrive feeling more rested than the person who drove it. You have now reached the point where most car buyers, even wealthy ones, stop climbing, but there is one level above this, and almost nobody gets invited. Level 1. The machine. Mercedes will not just sell you. This is the AMG ONE, and calling it a car barely captures what it actually is. It borrows more directly from a Formula One grid than from anything else currently sold with a license plate. Underneath the bodywork sits a 1.6-liter turbocharged hybrid V6, essentially a detuned version of the exact power unit used in Mercedes Formula One race cars, paired with 4 electric motors across the chassis for a combined output exceeding 1,000 horsepower. 2 of those electric motors sit directly on the front axle, independently controlling each front wheel and allowing torque vectoring precision normally reserved for actual race cars, while a third motor sits integrated with the engine itself, and a fourth handles the turbocharger directly, virtually eliminating the lag traditional turbocharged engines suffer from. Mercedes built fewer than 300 examples worldwide, and pricing reportedly stretches past $2 million before any options are added. But the price tag is not even the real barrier here. To understand why this car exists at all, you have to understand the gap between a normal hybrid system and what AMG ONE actually does. A typical hybrid blends an engine and an electric motor to improve efficiency. This car uses Formula One energy recovery technology, capturing heat from the turbocharger itself and converting it directly into electricity, a level of engineering complexity that took AMG years longer than originally planned, just to make reliable enough for road use, let alone customer ownership. The engine alone requires a complete rebuild after a relatively short number of miles compared to a normal car, a direct consequence of running genuine race-derived components on public roads. Owners are warned about this upfront and most simply do not care. Starting the car is not as simple as turning a key either. The full hybrid system needs to cycle through a startup sequence before the engine even fires, closer to a procedure than a routine. And the 8-speed transmission borrowed from Formula One technology shifts with a mechanical directness that feels completely unlike anything else wearing a Mercedes badge. Owning every car on this entire list, levels 1 through 6, genuinely improves your odds of being approved for level 7, almost like a loyalty program with a 1,000 horsepower reward at the end. Mercedes reviews every single application personally, prioritizing existing AMG collectors and longtime brand loyalists over anyone simply showing up with enough money. Some applicants reportedly wait years for an answer, and plenty are quietly declined regardless of their bank balance. A reminder that at this level, the car is choosing the owner just as much as the owner is choosing the car. This is not a car built to be driven daily. It is a rolling piece of Formula One engineering that happens to have license plates, and it represents the absolute ceiling of what the three-pointed star is capable of building when money and restraint are both removed from the equation entirely. 7 levels, from a turbocharged hatchback wearing a famous badge to a road legal race car, Mercedes personally decides who gets to own. Most people only ever climb the first few rungs, and that's genuinely fine. Levels 1 through 4 cover real, livable luxury most drivers will love for years. Now you know exactly what sits above you, level by level, all the way to the top. Click the video showing on your left right now, because it breaks down what it's like to drive these levels back to back.